today we're going to talk about the whiskey phase of 68 Whiskey AIT. But without further ado, let's get to it. Alright, what is up guys? Ben Allen back again with another 68 Whiskey related video. You guys asked for it, so here it is. And last week's video we went over the EMT phase of 68 Whiskey, so if you haven't watched that one, definitely check it out. If you're new here, definitely give a thumbs up for this video and subscribe if you aren't already, and turn on that bell notification. That way you guys can stay up to date whenever I drop new content, alright? And if you guys are barely tuning in, your first time to the channel, a little background on me. I did 4 years active duty as a 68 Whiskey. Got out as a sergeant. I did a couple of months in the civilian side and recently joined the reserves back in October, so I have that active duty knowledge and that reserve knowledge. You guys can feel free to ask me any questions and just drop your questions down below in the comments section, or if you don't want to do that, you can definitely follow me on Instagram and send me your questions there. I answer every single question I get through my Instagram DM, so you can do that through Ben_Allen175. That is my Instagram handle, so definitely feel free to check that out. But with all that said and out of the way, jumping into it, right? 68 Whiskey AIT Whiskey phase, right? And this is after EMT phase. Once you've gotten your NREMT certification, things like that. Even if you haven't gotten it, your certification the first try, you'll still move on to Whiskey phase, and you'll keep on retaking the NREMT as need be. And if you fail, then okay, you get reclassed to a different MOS, right? But until that time, you continue on with everybody else to Whiskey phase. And Whiskey phase is about another 8 weeks of training, and this is where you're introduced to the combat side of the whole 68 Whiskey MOS, right? You even get this book right here. So this is one of the books you get. This is Fieldcraft 1, and this just goes over pretty much like all the different things you'd be doing throughout that training for those couple weeks, the first couple weeks, and it just goes into just various topics. Like they even have the actual sheets in here that you're going to be using for testing. This is where you learn your combat casualty assessment, which is very important because when you go to Camp Bullis, which could be its video on its own if you guys would like that. Camp Bullis is pretty much the culmination of everything you've learned in AIT. It's a 2-week field exercise, and you're putting into the test every single thing you've learned. So if you want a video on that, just comment Camp Bullis down below, alright? But yeah, so it has a combat casualty assessment, a combat application tourniquet, emergency bandage, and there's so many more skills in here that you will be tested on and are required to pass in order to move on from Whiskey phase. And if you guys are thinking like, oh, well, how am I going to remember that? Like all that stuff. Perfect, because I made videos going over every single skill in the Whiskey phase portion. You can go to my playlist section on my channel. It's under my 68 Whiskey skills video playlist. I have like literally every skill you test on in Whiskey phase except for the SAM junctional tourniquet. It's all there, so definitely head on over if you want a full in-depth step-by-step how to complete the specific skill, because I promise you, you're gonna need to know these skills to move on from 68 Whiskey AIT, right? But yeah, so that's just some of the stuff in this book. It goes over burns and so much more, but you'll learn about that when you're in actual class. I'm not going to do a whole class on the book, right? But just a couple of just to inform you a little more on 68 Whiskey phase, this is where you start sticking people with needles. This is where you start dealing with blood a little bit. This is where you really get hands-on. And instead of civilians being your instructors like in EMT phase, you're gonna have actual Army NCOs being your instructors. So you'll have like maybe a couple E5s, E6s. The senior instructor will probably be like an E7 maybe. And you guys are divided up into classes by like alphabetical order. So Class 1 will have like the A's and the B's and some C's, and then so on and so forth. You'll do like a classroom portion for that day, and then you'll do the hands-on portion for like whatever you learn. So like the NPA, you know, that tube that goes in your nose, you'll learn about it first, you'll read about it in the books, and then you'll apply it. And you're doing it on each other, guys. So you're gonna get an NPA in your nose, you're gonna get stuck with needles, you're gonna do all of this, right? And once you learn those basic skills, you're going to move on to practicing your combat casualty assessment. And what the CCA, what the short for combat casualty assessment is is pretty much everything that you're learning individual. So like your individual skill for the NPA, putting on a tourniquet, or applying a trauma dressing, things like that. It's all incorporated into the CCA. You'll be given a specific scenario, like, hey, this casualty took a gunshot wound to, you know, the inner thigh or his inguinal area, right? Or, you know, he got shot in the arm, or just some minor things, like he's got a couple scrapes and bruises, and it's you as the medic that have to decide, like, okay, what's the best course of action for this? And my number one tip for the CCA is just do it the way you learned it, right? Don't do any extra stuff, and go in the order of importance, right? Depending on what they're teaching you guys nowadays, like when I went through AIT, we did HABCs. Now they may be doing March, right? But pretty much it's the same concept for both. It's just control massive hemorrhaging, right? For the H, ABCs, A is airway, B is breathing, C is circulation, and then after that you treat for shock as well, but that's usually thrown in circulation. And you're gonna learn it a bunch of different ways, but the best way to apply it is the way your instructors teach you, because they're teaching you the way they're gonna grade you, pretty much. And so if you stick to that, you should be good, and try not to get flustered. They're gonna throw things at you that, like, oh, well, you know, you're on airway right now, but, you know, it looks like he may need an IV. What are you gonna do? They're gonna try and do that to throw you off, like to get you to go out of step and to completely stop his airway treatment so you can jump to an IV, because everybody's gonna think giving an IV is like the most important thing you need to do as a medic. If you're ever attached to an infantry unit, I promise you, you will get asked to give IVs like almost on the daily. And if it's a weekend and they're partying, chances are you're going to be asked to give a drunk person IVs or something. Don't do it. Don't waste your bags of fluids on people just asking because they think it's a cure-all, like it's a hangover fixer, and just things like that. But don't get flustered doing your CCA. They're going to try to make it hectic, make it chaotic for you guys, because they're trying to put the pressure on you. So when you're in a real situation, chances are you'll do a little better than if you didn't have that pressure applied to you in training, you know what I mean? And so throughout this whole 8 weeks, you're really going to be getting a full hands-on experience. You're going to be outside a lot, outside of the classroom, like in the grassy area right outside the schoolhouse. You're going to be practicing. You're going to get stuck with needles so many times. Like your veins are going to be bruised, they're going to be like swollen, and if you don't like getting stuck with needles, I'm sorry, like there's really no way around it. Like you signed up to be a 68 whiskey, like it's part of the training. You have to get used to it. You may think like, well, what is me getting stuck with needles gonna do, right? Well, it makes you better because you know what it feels like, right? You know what it feels like to hit a vein, like because people are hitting your veins. And so it makes you a better medic in terms of when you actually go to stick someone, you're familiar with the feeling, so you'll know if you got the vein just right, you'll know when to drop the needle, you know when to advance, and it all plays a part, right? Sometimes you'll get lucky and you'll just need a saline lock or something, but actually that's not lucky. If you're gonna get stuck, you definitely want the fluids pushed through you in that whiskey phase, but sometimes you'll just be like, you won't even need a saline lock or anything, so you won't get stuck. Always try to be that casualty, you know what I mean? But over that, like that's pretty much whiskey phase in a nutshell. It's just the most hands-on portion. You're going to be learning so many new skills. Again, those skills that you're going to be tested on in whiskey phase are all on my channel already. I literally took time out of my annual training when I was with my reserve unit, or not my annual training, but like my recertification for my my MOS, right, so I can stay current with my NREMT. During lunch, me and 2 other soldiers, we stayed behind and we filmed every single skill for you guys step by step, so you guys can have that available and be able to study that before you actually test on the skills. So 100% check that out. It will be, I'll probably put it up here, and if it's not up here, just literally go to my playlist and click 68 whiskey skills and you'll find all the skills there. And the best advice I can give is just really practice whenever you have free time. If you have time to study, once you get out of class and you're back in the barracks and things like that, just get with a partner, like, hey, let's run through our CCA, let's do this, let's do that. And one of the best parts about whiskey phase is you get introduced to all these different types of carrying techniques, you know, how to set up your aid bag. Your aid bag, most of all, you get issued your aid bag there, so it's pretty cool. You get to set that up, you really get to play around with it. I get this question asked a lot, is how can I make my CCA time faster? Because you're timed on your casualty assessment. You have about 7 minutes to get to the circulation portion and start administering whatever circulation interventions he may need, unless that's changed or I just completely butchered it, but at least from what I remember, it's 7 minutes. And what I always tell people after, I didn't do this in AIT, I learned this going to my actual unit, is try to make everything easily accessible to where you don't even have to utilize your aid bag in the whole first initial round. You know what I mean? Like you have like a couple of like patches like mollied to the back of your aid bag. That way you can just take off your aid bag, drop it. You don't even have to unzip it. You just unclip a clip, bam, you have a whole plastic baggie full of airway, breathing, circulation, intervention materials, so you can treat that casualty without ever having to open your aid bag, because opening, fiddling around with the zippers, finding everything, and you're nervous, you're flustered, you're gonna be all sorts of places. And then when it comes time to move that casualty, you're gonna have to close your aid bag, put everything back in there, and you're gonna leave a lot of stuff behind. You don't want to do that. So if you make it to where you have a pouch or some sort of thing attached to your aid bag on the outside that you can easily just open for like one-time use, or even put it on your kit and you're like add an extra pouch and you can put a whole thing in there. That's what we did. We put like bleeder kits, we made, you know, just every kind of kit available to where we'd never have to open up our aid bag. And that's just some advice to y'all. If they allow you to do that, definitely do that, and it'll definitely set you up more for success. And there's still going to be tests in Whiskey Phase. You're going to learn the classroom portion, like I said, from this book right here. You're going to be testing out of this. You'll get another book also for Fieldcraft 2, I believe, and same thing for Fieldcraft 3. I honestly don't remember how many Fieldcrafts there are, but just know you're going to get a couple of these books, you're going to have homework, and you're going to have tests, just like you did in EMT phase. Definitely want to make sure you pass those tests, because you're going to go through a lot of stuff like needle decompressions, those you'll be tested on, all that stuff. Like, and then here, like they have the M9 aid bag packing diagram for instructional use. You probably won't be able to see it because of the light, but yeah, it's like, okay, yeah. But yeah, like that's like the aid bag right there. It's real shitty. I actually have a video going through this aid bag itself, so if you want to familiarize yourself with it, you can go check out my aid bag video. It's literally me stocking this and showing you what I put in it and all that fun stuff, you know what I mean? But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it for this video. I hope it gave you a little tips, tricks, or hacks to better make it through Whiskey Phase. If you guys have any questions pertaining to Whiskey Phase or even EMT Phase like I did last week, hit me up on my Instagram, Ben_Allen175. Best possible place to reach me. If you guys want the Camp Bullets video, which is the culmination of EMT Phase and Whiskey Phase, let me know. I'll definitely make it happen. It'll probably be a shorter video than this one because it's only 2 weeks of training, but you do a lot in there, and that's kind of like make or break it as well. Besides the NREMT portion being one of the hardest things, Camp Bullets can really, you know, stir the pot a little bit, if you know what I mean. Thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate it. If you haven't already, be sure to like this video, subscribe if you're new here. I really appreciate it, especially if you're a future 68 whiskey. Like, come on, where else are you gonna get this knowledge? You know what I mean? Not to brag or anything, but I'm very confident in my videos pertaining to 68 whiskey information, so definitely hit it up. Again, thank you, and I will see y'all in the next one. Later.